This video will begin to cover the fate of the Jedi books, with the main 9 books following the Legacy of the Force, and being dated 2 years after the fall of Darth Caedus. In these new, uncertain times, Luke and the Jedi must re-examine their role in the galaxy and face a new, looming darkness that will test the Grand Master of the Jedi like never before. Following the format of my previous series, this first video will cover the first 3 books, Outcast, Omen, and Abyss. Let's dive in. Jaina Solo flies on an Alliance government shuttle and sees the new Imperial Star Destroyer Gildad Paleon. She is part of the delegation that hopes to meet with the Imperial Remnant and formally bring it into the Galactic Alliance. It will be an important step towards establishing a new peace in a galaxy that has been wrought with civil war for several decades. Imperial Head of State Jagged Fell briefly greets Jaina and prepares for his meeting with Alliance Chief of State Natasi Dala. The two delegations exchange polite greetings, and after a preliminary meeting, Jagged pulls Jaina aside. They are now romantically involved once more, but Jaina knows that Jagged is planning to invade Alliance space at some point in the future. Jagged also reveals that he wants to have an official Jedi presence in the Empire, consisting of a second temple and effectively serving as an offshoot branch of the Order. Meanwhile, on Coruscant, Jedi Knight Jella Horn begins to be troubled by seemingly perceiving everyone around him as imposters, even his own family. Although everyone appears physically normal, he can't shake off the instant realizations he has that something is wrong. Valen draws his lightsaber and threatens what he sees as a false Mirax, his mother. As he confronts her, rage and a red anger builds up in him, and he is even driven to attack his father Corran when he arrives. Valen runs out of their apartment in a fit of madness, and battles Corran once more in the street before being shot with a stun blast by Mirax. Luke Skywalker and his son Ben, now 16 years of age, attend an Alliance meeting with Han and Leia Solo in the Senate chambers to assess the future relationship of the Alliance, Confederation, and Imperial Remnant. The Hapen Consortium was invited, but declined to attend. Ironically, the 3 leaders of each party are all former Imperials. During a break in the proceedings, they are visited by Jaina, but are then interrupted by the arrival of security speeders. Luke believes they have come to arrest him, as a legal case has been built against him, charging Luke with dereliction of duty during the Second Galactic Civil War. The charges stem from his decision to withdraw the Jedi from the Alliance chain of command during the war against Jacen Solo. An officer approaches Luke with a warrant for his arrest, who complies without resistance. In his cell, he meets with an old friend named Nawara Ven, who tells him he is being blamed by Natasi Dala for Jacen Solo's fall to the dark side, and is consequently partially responsible for Jacen's many war crimes. His case may be defensible in court, but the damage from the legal proceedings would cause the Jedi to lose massive amounts of public support. In the Jedi Temple, a subdued Jella Horn is being medically examined by Master Silgal, still racked with paranoia and delusions. She learns Valen is somehow blocking her instruments from capturing a reading on his brain, a power demonstrated by Jacen during the Swarm War. As for Valen himself, he begins to secretly plot his escape, calling out to mysterious organisms he calls insects through the Force for aid. He escapes later that night in the early morning, and Luke summons all the Jedi Knights on Coruscant. Valen attacks Eneth Holkin, aide to Denjax Tepler, co-chief of state of Corellia. He breaks into the Senate building while Jedi Octa Ramis and her apprentice, Seha Dorvald, also enter while looking for Valen. They find him in a shuttle preparing to escape, and are unable to stop Valen from fleeing. Han and Leia join the hunt in the Millennium Falcon alongside Luke and Ben. Luke is able to corner Valen's X-Wing with a speeder, but Valen ejects. The high-speed chase continues for some while until Luke is finally able to knock Valen out. The debacle, Luke knows, will do nothing to help improve the Jedi's public image. The news spreads fear-mongering stories of the Order, and Luke is painted as a benevolent but clueless ruler of the Jedi. Later, Luke meets with Chief of State Dala, who asserts the Jedi have always subverted the authority of the law throughout the Alliance and Republic's history. She believes the Jedi cannot come to believe they are above the law and have the ability to serve as judge, jury, and executioner in public affairs. Luke suddenly realizes that when the Force is removed from the equation, Dala is actually right. It would be incredibly easy, without the guidance of the Force, for a sense of entitlement to sprout within the Order. Luke now knows that to stop that evil from coming to fruition, he must accept the punishment of the state. At his trial later, Luke pleads guilty and is sentenced to a 10-year exile from Coruscant. He will relinquish his authority as Jedi Grand Master. Master Kent Hamner will take over his responsibilities. During his exile, Luke plans to investigate Jacen's fall to the dark side, to understand his turn to evil. Even though Ben is now a Jedi Knight, chooses to accompany Luke on his journey. The following morning, the Jedi on Coruscant give Luke an emotional send-off before he and Ben depart on the Jade Shadow. Master Hamner begins to take measures to demystify the Jedi Order in the public eye, saying that one Master will volunteer to be filmed for a documentary. Master Kip Duran volunteers. Additionally, however, Dala has informed the Order that they are to be accompanied by government observers at all times. Later that evening, Han and Leia receive an urgent call from Lando Calrissian, who asks for their help regarding mysterious earthquakes on Kessel. Han tells Lando to let the world die, as its low-gravity atmosphere is slowly bleeding into space anyways. However, they agree to quickly leave for Kessel in order to avoid the political mess on Coruscant. Alana Solo, the daughter of Jacen and Tenel Ka, will accompany them. She still goes by Amelia to conceal her true identity. Jaina spends more time with Jag, and the two meet up with Tahiri Vela, former apprentice of Caedus who abandoned the Jedi Order after the war and now works as a bounty hunter. Tahiri believes that Lumia didn't necessarily break Jacen. She merely reshaped his existing sentiments and worldviews into what became Darth Caedus. Later, Jaina consults with a group of bounty hunters who were hired by Dala during Valen's rampage. She brings in another being named Dab Hantak, but is shocked when a man bearing a striking resemblance to Anakin Solo walks in. He is her assigned government observer, and was part of the late Vicky Shesh's plot to kidnap an infant Ben Skywalker during the Yuzan Vong War. Meanwhile, the Millennium Falcon arrives at Kessel. They learn more about the mysterious groundquakes, as well as several underground tombs that need to be studied as well. Elsewhere, Ben and Luke have made their way to Doran. Their goal is to seek an audience with the Baron Do sages. Luke seeks to track Jacen's path in the 5-year forced pilgrimage he embarked on after the Yuzan Vong War. They walk to the Baron Do sages' temple. Luke introduces them to a Keldor woman named Testura Pan, who refuses to allow them an audience with her mistress, Tila Mong. Luke, in a surprisingly nonchalant manner, tells her Ben will spar her in hand-to-hand combat. After a lengthy fight, Ben emerges victorious, and they are allowed to see Mong. Tila Mong tells Ben and Luke that the temple was one of Jacen's stops on his pilgrimage, some 9 long years ago. He learned from them how to extend his senses, and most importantly, how to avoid detection by others in the Force. Luke asks to learn the techniques to better understand Jacen. Knowing there exists a slight danger that he may be led to darkness, Luke makes Ben forego his attachments and promises to kill him if the worst comes to pass. Han and Leia begin their investigation in the mines of Kessel, wanting to learn more about the behaviors of the energy spiders that lurk below the surface. They encounter a swirling mass of light, which renders their speeder powerless but doesn't seem to hurt them. It is apparently called a bogey by local miners, and is one of the spider's food sources. Leia believes the bogies may also be connected to the ongoing groundquakes. On Coruscant, the High Court begins to review the legality of Dala's executive order curbing the Jedi's power. Security forces arrive at the temple with an arrest warrant for Valen Horn, demanding he be turned over to them. The Jedi are forced to surrender Valen, who is still maniacally rambling, in order to avoid another public spectacle. Jaina is rapidly growing tired of being constantly followed by her observer and the political theater the Order is trapped in. It is deemed in court that Valen Horn is not fit to stand for trial, but will be detained in carbonite imprisonment. Meanwhile, on Kessel, Alana sneaks away from all the grown-ups to explore. She wanders into an area of stone outcroppings and soon senses something odd in the Force. Alana finds a strange building, which she believes to be a tomb. However, she can sense energy stirring in it, some sort of presence. A voice suddenly enters her head, asking her name and telling a frightened Alana it can feel her. She tells it nothing and turns to run away. Elsewhere, the cave Han and Leia are in collapses from another quake, plunging them into darkness. It is revealed to Luke that Jedi Master Plo Koon was a member of the Barrandau Order. He will train in the Hasat Dur technique while Ben will practice the sparring. Hasat Dur will teach Luke how to emit a low level of electromagnetic radiation from his body as the result of interactions between the Force and his nervous system. This was the technique applied by Jason to scramble brain scans. Luke passes the first few tests with ease, but senses Tila Mong is hiding something from him. Han and Leia are unharmed, but must somehow find their way back to their friends in Alana. After some hiking, they come across a massive cavern with large manufactured blocks that are covered with lights. The complex stretches on for kilometers under the surface of Kessel. Another bogey approaches Han and Leia, but does not seem to be hostile. Leia senses its purpose is to deliver some form of data somewhere. The bogey seems to almost be part of a larger computing body, composed of what she describes as millions of random intensities. She deduces the intensities may be some form of gravity wells. They then find an antenna-like structure that exerts a strong pull on them. Leia realizes it acts as an electromagnet, and will start spinning and blow up the cavern. This will create a chain reaction that will destroy Kessel. Han and Leia make it back to Lando, and they are able to send drones underground to create a schematic of the vast network. Ben and Luke attend a farewell ceremony for Charse Saul with the other Barrandau masters. They watch as Saul says his goodbyes, then detect his presence in the Force slowly disappear. His body is taken in a casket and lit on a pyre. Luke, however, tells Ben that Saul didn't die, but instead simply cloaked himself from the Force. They investigate the temple later that night, discovering a storage chamber that leads to a secret entrance to the floor above. Another chamber is discovered, and inside are 4 masters, including a very much alive Saul. Saul tells them he will leave the planet and take on a new name, and Ben and Luke are offered the same privilege. Wanting to learn more about the bizarre tradition, they agree to accompany Saul. Upon arrival at their destination deep under the surface of Doran, Ben and Luke are told they must choose new names. They meet with the former master Koro Zil, who has been renamed Huak Duul Staranjan, and are informed they cannot leave. Jaina, meanwhile, has formed a group of Jedi conspirators with the permission of Master Hemner called Darkmeld. Master Techley informs her Jedi Seth Helen was seen dressed as a prison worker, presumably to break Valen out. It is assumed he has the same condition as Valen as well. Jaina summons the other members of the group, which include Jag, Tahiri, and Winter Kelchu, for a mission to capture Helen. During his first scuffle with security forces, he was able to freeze them in place and take their weapons. However, with the help of Mirax Horn, the Jedi are now able to avoid security forces and Dallas bounty hunters and detain Helen, retaining him in Jedi custody. The Jedi publicly deny any involvement in the fracas at the prison, but Tahiri's lightsaber is soon found at the scene. Zilga offers to help examine Seth. Meanwhile, Han and Leia summon their old friends from the original Rogue Squadron, including Wedge and Tilly's, to help them deal with the threat on Kessel. The plan is to prematurely detonate the towers to avoid the destruction of the mines. Alana wants to stay on the surface, claiming there is a frightening presence waiting for her up in space. The mission carries on for hours without major interruptions, and the towers are destroyed. Ben and Luke explore the caverns of the Hidden One, Zill's new title. They learn the entire complex was designed to be a safe bunker in the event of another Jedi purge like Order 66. The allegedly dead masters would then resurface in the event of such a cataclysmic event to reteach their ways of the Force. Luke and Ben ask the Hidden One about Jason's time on Doran, and learn that Jason seemed to have cut himself off emotionally from his childhood. The Hidden One also asserts another Jedi purge is nearing, and that Luke has made the Order vulnerable to attacks from the government. Time passes, and Ben begins to grow impatient as Luke seeks to learn more from the Barrandau. He believes they must convince the Hidden One of the wrongness of his ways, and that their Order must be redeemed to accept life in the Force as they were before. At their renaming ceremony, Luke confronts the Keldors, claiming their people to be dead in spirit, their growth stagnated. Life is risk. Life is energy, vitality. Yet you have rejected these things. In rejecting them, you reject the Force. In rejecting the Force, you deprive yourself of the right to teach its ways to the living. Luke puts Ben on center stage once more, saying his son will duel Charsei Saul. Ben wins once more, proving Luke's point correct. The Hidden One then demands the Skywalkers die, to be slowly suffocated once their oxygen-nitrogen canisters run out. He lashes out with Force lightning at Luke, who deflects the attack with his lightsaber. A powerful storm begins to rage around him, but Luke begins to step forward. Tapping into the Force, he sends the whirlwind aside, still walking towards the Hidden One. Luke knocks down the Hidden One, who resigns the order to let him and Ben die, but they are still not allowed to leave. Ben then detonates several bombs around the entry tunnel, causing a cave-in. He exposes several logistical faults and lies about the complex and the Master's teachings, convincing the other Keldors to let him and Luke leave. Elsewhere, the ground quakes on Castle Seas, and the bogies all mysteriously disappear. Han and Leia prepare to return to Coruscant with Alana. The High Court on Coruscant strikes down Dalla's executive order, and the Jedi are freed from the cuffs of their ever-present observers. Luke and Ben take to space once more, planning to continue following Jason's journey. The Sith Disian tracks the Sith meditation sphere, the former ship of the Dark Lady Lumia and Ulema Rar, to the ancient Sith homeworld of Ziost. She looks to capture the ship and take it back to the Order of the One Sith, which is currently in hiding on Korriban. Disian attempts to convince the sphere to return with her to Korriban, but the sphere declines, stating perfection for the Sith cannot be achieved by hiding from the galaxy. Elsewhere, Vestara Kai spars with her friend Ari Ross on the planet of Kesh. They are interrupted by the arrival of the sphere, and Vestara can sense its curiosity in the Force. It is revealed she and Ari are part of a lost tribe of Sith, and Vestara reaches out to the ship, seeking to learn from it. Her people were once passengers on a ship called the Omen, which crashed on Kesh. The native Keshiri believed the coming of the Sith to be an omen, and were conquered by the Sith soon after. Now, the Sith on Kesh believe they are destined to defend the planet against the prophetic return of those who would destroy it. Later, Vestara is summoned before the Circle of Lords and the Grand Lord, Darish Vol. She learns of the nature of the galaxy, which comes as an enormous revelation since her tribe has been isolated from the rest of the galaxy for thousands of years. Vestara tells the Lady Rhea of her brief conversation with the sphere. She was apparently chosen by the ship to be its apprentice, and the Circle of Lords gives her her first lightsaber. Vestara will enter the tutelage of Lady Rhea, and they will be the first Sith in millennia to leave Kesh. She looks forward to following in her father's footsteps as a Sith saber. As she becomes familiar with the training temple, the ship summons her and Lady Rhea. It tells them the Sith have been nearly destroyed, and the galaxy is now ruled by the Jedi. It shocks Vestara and Rhea, as they had believed the Sith had been in control for thousands of years. Jella Horn, the younger sister of Vaylin Horn, struggles to cope with Vaylin's recent outbursts of madness and subsequent detainment. She visits Silgal, hoping to somehow help her with her study of Vaylin. However, she is suddenly struck by the same affliction, seeing Silgal and everyone around her as imposters. Jella runs away from Silgal, who orders the temple security to detain her. As she frantically tries to escape, she sees a vision of herself running to freedom and escaping the temple. Jella has been somehow able to flow walk into the future and witness her escape. She follows the path exactly and gives the Jedi the slip. It is a power she did not possess before, but was one mastered by Jason Solo years ago. Jella barrels into two of her friends, Barv and Yakil, but fights them off as well. Alliance security forces then swarm her, detaining another seemingly berserk Jedi. She is taken to be frozen in carbonite by Chief of State Dalla. Ben and Luke on the Jade Shadow learn of the recent incidents with Jella and Vaylin. Zogal confides to them she sensed something involving time and space during Gisella's escape, which concerns Luke. He notes that the 3 Jedi who have gone mad have all exhibited abilities demonstrated by Jason that they couldn't have learned themselves. Luke believes Cadus was able to flow walk into the past to set up contingency plans for his future. He decides he and Ben must investigate the flow walking power more. To do so, they must visit the hostile Ang T in the Cathol Rift. On the way, Ben studies up on Ang T culture, learning their ships can shoot rays that distort one's perception of time. They also believe in mysterious godlike figures, dubbed as those who dwell beyond the veil. Meanwhile, Kent Hamner summons the Jedi Masters, including a frazzled Corran Horn. They learn of Gisella's flow walking, and Hamner reveals it will be 3 days until he is able to meet with Dala. Leia offers to talk with the Chief of State to speed things up. Meanwhile, Moff Lacerson, one of the survivors of the Bloodfin attack during the war against Darth Cadus, meets with Moff Banson. They plot to restore the Imperial remnant to its former glory and gain power for themselves. To do so, they must get rid of Jagged Fell and Jaina Solo. Leia continues to worry about the dark presence Alana sensed on Kessel. She is concerned that Alana's childhood experience has been suffering and lacking stability. Han and Leia decide to take Alana to the livestock exchange and exhibition to get her a pet. Luke and Ben arrive in the Cathol Rift, with Luke using the Hassat Dur technique he learned on Doran to stabilize the ship. They encounter a Sanhedrin ship, presumably piloted by one of the Ang T. Ben senses a unique energy presence in the Force, one that weaves in and out. They are then tested by the Ang T, who do not communicate through BASIC. Luke and Ben tap into the Force to reach out to the emissary, who is named Tadar Ro. Ben tries to maintain his focus, but becomes overwhelmed and is forced to quit the test. Luke manages to carry through, and is able to learn the coordinates of Tadar Ro's homeworld. They soon land on the cold, rocky planet, and learn the Ang T are predominantly a society of monks. Tadar Ro tells them recently a prophet arose, and foretold the coming of those who dwell beyond the veil. However, the prophet died only a few weeks ago, creating a schism among the Ang T. He now asks Luke and Ben to help determine if the prophet was real or false by touching the relics, supposed artifacts of those who dwell beyond the veil. Ben asks to learn how to flow walk, which silently disturbs Luke. Han, Leia, and Jaina, along with Jedi Natua Wan, take Alana to the livestock exchange and exhibition. Alana quickly steers them to the area with the more dangerous animals. Suddenly, the lights go out. Juan suddenly becomes stricken with the same affliction as Valen and Gisela and runs to the control room. The exits become shut off, and everyone is now trapped with the animals. The dangerous animals are then let loose and begin attacking the crowd, freed by Juan in her delirious attempt to escape and attack the imposter she now sees everywhere. Juan begins to throw her voice around in the Force, another one of Jason's old powers, to confuse Han, Leia, and Jaina. Unfortunately for the Jedi, Javis Tyr, a notorious journalist, is filming the entire debacle. Jaina finds Juan and duels her alongside Leia and another Jedi named Vrad, and they are able to knock her out. Luke and Ben continue to learn from Tadar Ro, who also taught Jason during his pilgrimage. He reveals that Ang T do not see the Force as divided into light and dark, but rather a prism with variations. Jason was also taught the power to move objects from one place to another in an instant. Ben confides to Luke he believes Jason had noble intentions, but his means to achieve his goal of peace and order were undoubtedly evil. Luke states that while a rainbow force can certainly exist, it is a dangerous path for the Jedi, as walking in any gray area greatly increases the seductiveness of the dark side. Luke and Ben are then sent by the Ang T to find many artifacts, but since the rift among the monks must be healed soon. Tadar Ro tells them they will soon be taken to the Embrace, the site that contains all the gathered relics. On Coruscant, Javis Tyr continues his smear campaign against the Jedi, releasing his footage of the livestock exchange disaster. Chief of State Dala is shocked by the news, as well as the revealing of Seth Helen's imprisonment by the Jedi. She immediately demands a meeting with Kent Hamner. The Jedi Masters are understandably peeved they were not told of Talon's capture, and they leave to meet Dala along with the Solo family. Dala demands the release of Juan and Helen. Jaina takes the fall for the unlawful arrests and will be confined to the temple for 2 weeks. Dala pushes for more serious, widespread consequences, looking to humiliate the Order for overstepping again. Jaina reveals the existence of the Darkmelt team, but leaves out the involvement of Jagged, Winter, and Tahiri. Later, Tyr interviews Dala on his network as Jaina returns to her quarters, exhausted. She finds Jagged already there, who asks her to marry him. Meanwhile, Luke and Ben prepare to receive the embrace. They enter a cave that glows with countless colors and is strong in the Force. It is also filled with countless artifacts, and Ben and Luke begin examining each one. Luke then finds a small metal pyramid and gasps upon touching it. It is revealed that elsewhere in the galaxy, Vestara has gained control of the Sith ship and used it to commandeer vessels for her tribe. She is now 16 years old, and she and Lady Rhea now command a ship called Eternal Crusaders. The tribe also now has a growing fleet. Suddenly, Vestara and Lady Rhea feel a powerful jolt in the Force, and the sphere informs them of Luke Skywalker's existence. It turns out Luke has come into contact with something called the Codex. He tells Ben it seems to have enhanced his Force powers, and that he also sensed something in the Maw, a cluster of black holes. They return to the Ang-Ti. Luke says they must determine their own destiny, whether they'll follow the Prophet's foretellings or the Force's guidance. Ben Flo walks into the past, and sees Jacen learning the power from Tadar Ro. He is able to gain a closure of sorts, sensing a brokenness in Jacen when he was still a Jedi. Ben knows now the transformation of Darth Caedus was not preventable. Jacen could never be saved. He returns to Luke and Tadar Ro, and learns Jacen also touched the Codex and investigated the Maw. As Ben and Luke prepare to leave, they are given a Vorcha stun weapon. It is revealed Luke has also mastered the technique of instantly moving objects. Meanwhile, Alana asks Han and Leia to let her adopt a Nexu cub. Tahiri is detained by Alliance officers for her murder of Admiral Gilad Palaeon during the Second Galactic Civil War. The Lost Tribe of the Sith assesses the threat of Luke Skywalker to its order, but the Sith sphere abruptly departs Kesh, following a mysterious dark call. They decide to send a force after the sphere to recover it, and Vestara realizes she sensed the sphere has a male presence. Han and Leia visit the insane Jedi Seth, Helen, and Atul Wan in the Asylum block. Silgal believes they may have actually grown to become addicted to the Force somehow. They move on to the cell of Raynar Thol, former joiner of the Killik colony. He has been deemed fit enough to leave, but doubts if he is ready to re-enter society. Meanwhile, Luke and Ben begin to sense a constant chill in the back of their minds. They prepare to meet with a race of beings called the Minddrinkers. Ben recalls his time spent at the Shelter, a space station, when he was 2 and how he felt a similar presence. Their ship approaches the looming black holes, and Luke deduces they must pilot between 2 of them to find the Minddrinkers. Ben takes control of the piloting as the Force grows stormy and foreboding. He senses the familiar dark presence and begins to follow it. They reach Stable Zone 1 and see a Duros Jedi floating in space, believed to be Qualo Mode, a Jedi who had previously been missing. Mode fires a missile at their ship, and they evade him and land on a space station that resembles a smaller center point. Ben and Luke explore the station, which seems to be run down and long abandoned. On Coruscant, Basil and Yakil, friend of Jella Horn, also succumb to the insanity plaguing the Jedi. They run into Jaina and Jagged, as well as Han and Leia. Yakil and Basil are quickly subdued and taken to a temple. Han trips over a cleaning droid on the way in as they take the 2 Jedi to Silgal. However, Alliance security quickly arrives, revealing they somehow have footage of the entire encounter. Han quickly realizes the footage came from the droid, and the security captain shows them a warrant allowing them to detain Basil and Yakil. Jaina and Jag quickly depart, and Jag reveals Dala has been considering hiring Mandalorian commandos to deal with the Jedi. They catch a glimpse of Javis Tyr tracking them, and Jaina spots the cleaning droid once again. Jaina catches the droid and ensnares Tyr in a legal loophole, saying he can be charged with private espionage. Later, Silgal examines Basil and Yakil and comes to believe the affliction is only affecting the Jedi who hid in the Maw during the Yuzan Vong War. Meanwhile, Vistara and Lady Rhea on the Eternal Crusader continue to track the Sith sphere. Vistara can still contact the ship through her mind, and also senses a new, immensely powerful presence in the dark side. The ship then abruptly vanishes from the Force. Vistara must also deal with jealous Sith sabers and other masters, who question why such a powerful body like the sphere would only reveal itself to an apprentice like her. She then senses a third presence, and the powerful darkness also begins to slowly physically draw her into the cold abyss. It is a sensation now felt across the entire ship. Elsewhere, Luke also senses the cold dark presence wash over him, almost like an ancient tentacle of longing urging him to surrender. They encounter Mode again, who seems to be possessed by the same madness as the Jedi on Coruscant. Luke then meets Sikh Riontar, who is revealed to be the leader of the Minddrinkers. They are a sect of Force users who believe life trapped in a body is anguish, and thus meditate themselves to death to achieve a higher plane of escape in the Force, dubbed Beyond Shadows. Mode, however, seems to be cured, giving Luke hope a treatment for the madness can be relayed to Silgal. Luke and Ben learn Jason visited the station, and had a dream that convinced him to return to the galaxy. He apparently saw a vision of darkness coming he believed only he could stop. Luke wonders if this is the point where Jason fell to the dark side. The Minddrinkers instead tell him this is not the case, and invite him to return beyond the shadows to learn more. Ben will repair the Jade Shadow in the meantime. Javis Tyr meets with Mothla Surson on Coruscant and shows him the footage of the Solos and the Jedi. He has been working with Lasurson to undermine the Jedi's power and further the influence of the Imperial Remnant. They learn Dala may hire a Mandalorian company soon as well, something Jagged had intended to remain a secret. Alana, meanwhile, adopts a Nexu cub named Anji and watches the news with Han and Leia. 2 apprentices have recently resigned from the Jedi Order in the wake of the recent outbursts. Han and Leia are also stunned to learn of Tahiri's arrest for killing Admiral Palaeon. They are then interrupted by the arrival of Wyn Dorvan, Dala's personal assistant. He tells them about the Mandalorians, leaving them to decide what to do with the information. They rush away to pass the news on to the Jedi, who begin to wonder if Dala is deliberately trying to provoke the Order. The Masters are also outraged at the arrest of Tahiri, even though she isn't technically part of the Order, but feel they have no choice but to hand over Basil and Yakil. They then ask Han and Leia to get in contact with Hapes. Jaina disassembles Tyr's cleaning droid, and finds evidence of him conspiring with Mothla Surson. Han and Leia arrive at her apartment coincidentally at the same time as Jag. Jaina's parents are furious with Jag for keeping the Mandalorians a secret from the Jedi, and storm out. Jag takes the droid to a meeting with Dala. Vistara and the others on the Eternal Crusader land on a remote planet as she ignores the ship's urges for them to turn back. The planet's environment is hostile, with the native plants soon proving to be lethal to the party. There seems to be a powerful presence of sorts on the planet, one that has seemingly captured the Sith sphere and bent it to its will. Lady Rhea ponders the Kashiri myth of the Destructors, a mysterious species that allegedly purges the galaxy of civilization every few eons, restoring life to a primitive state. Vistara and Ari then encounter a beautiful woman with cold, gray eyes. Meanwhile, Luke meditates with the Minddrinkers, adhering to their code, "There is no life, only the Force." He feels his body fall away, and begins to float in a violet cloud as a Force presence. Riontar asserts there is only one Force as they know it, just many ways to perceive it. As Luke moves, he seemingly teleports ahead without taking steps. Time becomes meaningless as a purple glow grows in his chest and he feels as if he has become the Force. Luke is taken to the Font of Power, which he detects as a dark side nexus. He is told that drinking from it will grant him the power to save the Jedi Order, but declines, saying the Order is strong enough to save itself without him. But a moment of temptation strikes him, and he peers into the fountain. He sees a dark cloud wrap a cold tentacle around him, and a female voice whispers for him to enter the fountain. Luke is able to fight the urge and resist the temptation. Ben, meanwhile, learns the complex is called Sinkhole Station. All the Minddrinkers were gathered here to commune with the Force presence Ben has also sensed. He still does not fully comprehend the Paradise dimension, and begins to mistrust the Minddrinkers that accompany him. Jagged Fell and Dala watch on TV as Tahiri's arraignment commences, with the judge being Dala's personal appointment. Jag asks Dala to dismiss Tahiri's charges and for the Jedi trials to be moved to the normal court system. He then reveals Asursan's espionage to Dala, who demands he deal with the Moffs but still believes the Jedi need to be kept under watch. To her, Sith such as Cadus are merely the result of Jedi who lost their way. Vestara learns the mysterious woman who lives in a volcanic cave is called Abeloth. She seems to exert some form of control over the attacking plants, and helps the Sith search for the ship. Abeloth can also change her appearance at any time, adding an enchanting layer to her beauty. Running low on supplies, Lady Rhea informs the group they must return to their ship in 2 hours. Abeloth will join them on the return journey. Vestara distrusts her motives, believing Abeloth to be a lonely castaway possibly driven to madness. Lady Rhea is attacked by several vines, but is saved by Vestara. She catches a glimpse of Abeloth and sees her true form, a tall, twisted monster with deep sunken eyes and hands of writhing tentacles. Vestara is the only Sith to notice Abeloth's real appearance. Jaina leads Mirax and a team of masters to Dala's secret prison, where they hope to free Valen and Jella Horn. They are outraged to see that the 2 Jedi frozen in carbonite are being kept as office decorations, and the reporters that accompany them are also shocked. Dala then arrives and is forced to do PR damage control, silently shooting venomous glares at Jaina. Elsewhere, Han and Leia undergo a mission to transfer the Jedi held in the Asylum Block to the hidden Jedi base on Shedu Mod. However, they are attacked by a squad of Dala's Mandalorians. During the fight, Basil exhibits another unexpected force power when he phases his arm through a Mandalorian's Beskar armor without denting it. They are able to fight off the commandos and flee to Shedu Mod. Still beyond shadows, Luke is now offered the opportunity to bathe in the pool of knowledge, but he knows that much time has passed out in the real world. He is tempted by the chance to see Mara and Ben's futures. All he would have to do is take the tentacle hand and drown in the pool. He backs away, and learns that Jason also resisted the pool and the font, apparently not wishing to become a Celestial, a mysterious cosmic race that controlled the Killiks eons ago. The Minddrinkers seem to be trying to delay for time, and Luke glances into the pool again. He sees the same vision as Jason did during the war, a white throne of balance seated by a red-haired woman, during a time of peace in the galaxy. It is revealed that Jason saw a similar vision, but instead one of a man in dark armor surrounded by acolytes. This is what Jason saw that drove him to leave the Maw and return to the galaxy. Ben decides to join Luke beyond the shadows, and soon appears by his father's side. They learn the mysterious lady in the mist wished to keep them in the dream dimension, and Ben realizes she is the presence that constantly reached for him when he was a child in shelter. They are then shown to the Lake of Apparitions, where they see the spirits of Anakin Solo, Mara, and Jason himself. The meeting with Jason's spirit is understandably awkward, and he seems relieved to hear of Luke's vision of Alana. He also tells Luke the dark figure he saw was faceless, his identity unknown. There are now only 15 members of Vestara's group remaining, and she braces for an inevitable power struggle between Lady Rhea and a rival master, Yuvar Zal. They finally find the ship, and Vestara urges it once more to come with her and not Zal. She is able to regain control of the ship, shocking the other survivors. As they board, Abeloth says she will join them on the Eternal Crusader once they have captured Ben and Luke Skywalker. Still, only Vestara sees through Abeloth's manipulations, and now realizes she is a manifestation of an ancient, dark cosmic power. The Sith ship then takes them to Sinkhole Station, where Ben and Luke are reawakening in their physical bodies. As Ben and Luke regain their strength, they see several red lightsabers outside and sense multiple new dark presences. The survivors from the Eternal Crusader attack them, and a fight breaks out. However, the conflict becomes rather one-sided, as the Sith cannot match the Skywalker's prowess in battle and are plagued by their own infighting. Dahl attacks Lady Rhea and is killed by Vistara as Ari hurls stun grenades at Ben and Luke. However, they resist its effects and quickly kill Ari. Vistara manages to slash Luke across the face with a blade, but is knocked out. Luke and Ben take her prisoner and kill the rest of the attackers. Ben then senses the presence of the Sith ship, and Luke puts a blood trail on Vistara and allows her to escape so they can track her. He hopes she will lead them to the rest of the mysterious Sith order that attacked them. Luke, with a smile, then tells Ben it doesn't matter what Jason saw on the Throne of Balance, and most importantly, it never will.